At any point over the last few years, if anyone asked me after finding out that I review gadgets for a living what my favourite gadget is or what the best thing I've seen over the past couple of years is, my answer is usually the Kindle. Likely expecting me to mention something super futuristic and high-tech, it's always a bit of an anticlimactic response, but it's true nevertheless. The 2021 Kindle Paperwhite has been one of my most used pieces of technology that's ever landed in my house. But now there's a new version. The 2024 Kindle Paperwhite picks up from where the last one left off, but is it worth it? I'm Cam Bunton, this is Trusted Reviews, let's dive in. So there isn't a huge amount to go into detail on when talking product design on a Kindle. Anyone familiar with Amazon's e-reader range will know that they look like this. It's a fairly standard looking plastic rectangle with a black and white screen on the front. There are mainstay features of the Paperwhite specifically, which differentiates it from the cheaper basic Kindle. It's bigger for starters, featuring a 7-inch display versus the smaller 6-inch display on the basic Kindle, and whether that's a good or a bad thing likely depends on whether you prefer the most nimble and portable Kindle or a larger display for easier reading. It's also got a more premium finish than the basic model, and its water-resistant design ensures moisture can't get inside and wreck the internals. And if you look at the bezel around the display, you'll notice it's all flush underneath the surface of the Kindle Paperwhite, where the cheaper model has a lip and a plastic frame sitting above and around the screen. And this differentiation has been pretty consistent over the past few years, and essentially just means you won't get lots of dust and fluff collecting on the inside of your screen. Look closely at the 2024 model and you'll see changes from previous Paperwhites too. The rounded corners on the 2024 version feature a more generous curve, as do the edges around the four sides of the device. All of it give it a softer, friendlier look and feel. That friendly vibe is only added to further by the availability of colourful, bright options. This pink raspberry unit is a visual delight, but there's also a jade green model and the usual black variant to round out the set. Now, being relatively affordable devices, the Kindle finish isn't especially luxurious. However, the Paperwhite's rear has a soft touch, smooth finish which is really nice to hold. It doesn't feel as sticky as the previous generation either, so I'm hoping that 3 years down the line it doesn't end up looking as grimy and beaten up as the 2021 unit has. But without using it for 3 more years, I can't verify whether or not there's been any real improvement here. But what I would recommend is grab a case and then you don't have to worry about that at all. It is worth noting though that as with most Kindles, the lack of a glossy oleophobic glass on the front does mean it collects smears and smudges from being touched and swiped without any encouragement. Otherwise, it's a nice product to hold and to use. It's still only got one button on it for locking, waking up and powering off the Kindle, and that means all other interactions, whether it be swiping to turn pages or just navigating the Kindle store or your own library, are done using a touchscreen. And with it not being an especially responsive touchscreen all the time, that does add a little bit of a friction layer, whereas having buttons like the old Kindle Oasis has would make things a bit easier. Otherwise, the reading experience of the latest Kindle is about as good as it gets on an e-ink device, and in some relatively minor ways it's better than the last one. Maybe not enough for you to upgrade if you still have one in really good condition, but perhaps enough to tempt you if yours is old, scuffed and seen better days. That said, it's very much a case of refining the experience, improving on subtle things, than making big changes. One of those is the anti-reflective properties of the transparent display surface. It appears to cope better with bright sources of light directly reflecting off the surface, and so disperses and softens that light better than before. It doesn't completely kill them, but it does make them a bit less blinding. Similarly, the LED front lighting system has been upgraded to make it more natural. That means when you adjust the warmth to its lowest setting, it's not as blue or cool as the previous Paperwhite was, and so retains a more natural tone designed to mimic how paper in ambient lighting looks, rather than appearing unnaturally blue. It's also not quite as red or orange looking when you crank it up to its maximum warmth either. As previously, the warmth can be set to a schedule so you can have it come on at a specific level at a specific time. Me personally, that meant setting it to around the 10 or 11 mark after 9 PM when I'd typically be reading in bed before sleep. Also useful at nighttime in bed is dark mode. And in fact, given that bedtime is the time that I used my Kindle Paperwhite the most, it was in dark mode pretty much all the time that I was testing the device. This standard model sadly doesn't have automatic brightness on it, so you do need to manually change the brightness to a level you're happy with. However, if you pay a bit extra, you can get the signature edition, and you'll get auto brightness and wireless charging. There is a slight inconsistency I noticed with the latest display, perhaps down to the positioning and how the display is lit, I saw that when looking at a clean blank screen with little text that the lighting and the colour of the lighting wasn't particularly consistent and even across the entire panel. Now I can't say it's something that really bothered me while reading, particularly not with dark mode enabled, but just something minor I spotted when I started looking really closely. The bottom left corner, for instance, seemed to be a bit warmer and more yellow than the rest of the screen. Now, e-ink being e-ink, the lighting isn't really needed at all when you're reading it during the day or in any area with good light. And the slightly increased contrast means that the Kindle is very easy to read in any environment. Now, one important improvement, at least for anyone not familiar with e-ink displays and how they work, is that the screen refresh time has been improved, as has general speed and performance. Now I noticed it mostly when loading other parts of the book that weren't just flipping pages, like loading the home screen or trying to navigate the Kindle store. Loading times were noticeably faster than the last one. Those times when the screen needs to do a full refresh and goes all black for a split second seem to take less time, and that effect, which may seem glitchy to some who have never used a Kindle before, isn't as obvious or as jarring. It's clearly never going to be as smooth and instant as an OLED or LCD display, but it's a slight improvement that might help that transition to slower e-ink displays for those who have never used one before. Similarly, store pages load faster, and it takes less time to load when you switch from home to library. Basically anything that isn't just turning a page in a book and requires more processing is zippier than before. Now e-ink may have its downsides, but the one reason it still makes the perfect display type for Kindles is that it's incredibly power efficient. It's only using battery juice when the page refreshes, which means when you're just staring at a blank page with no light on, it's not really using any battery at all. So it's that refreshing when you turn a page in your book that uses the battery. If you're just staring at a page that's still, it's using very little of the battery's capacity at all. Now Amazon's claim is that this battery can last up to 12 weeks on a full charge. But as with all claims, how much mileage you get from it will very much depend on how you use your Kindle. If you read it at night time or in low light and always have the light on set to a high brightness level, it will use more battery. Similarly, if you use a large font size and turn pages in your book frequently, then that will also drain the battery faster. Now, in my own testing, which included reading for an hour every night, reading over the weekends, and also lots of extra store loading, navigation within the interface, and all sorts of other extra bits to test animation speeds and such, I managed to drain about 25 or 30% of the battery in 10 days. Of course, my usage during the testing period doesn't fit how you'd probably use it in a regular, everyday way. But to give you an idea of battery drain each reading session, with the screen brightness set to 6, which is about 25%, and the warmth set to 7, and dark mode enabled, a 1 hour reading session used about 2% of the battery. That indicates you could get about 50 hours of reading time with the screen light before needing to plug it in to charge. Read with the light switched off during the day and in light mode and you'll almost certainly get a lot more. In the end, the Kindle Paperwhite is still very much a go-to device for me. I wouldn't recommend upgrading from the last one necessarily, but if you have an older Paperwhite or one of the other models that's more than 3 years old, I'd recommend the new Paperwhite more readily than the other Kindles. It's got that balance right between having the best, largest display without being a giant tablet-sized device. It's great to read, it lasts for weeks on a full charge, and it's moisture resistant too. Plus, it doesn't cost a lot. So what do you think of the new Kindle Paperwhite? Let me know in the comments, or you can get me on social media. I'm at Cam Bunton on most platforms, including Threads and Blue Sky. If you did like this video, please do leave a thumbs up, subscribe and tap that notification bell, and I'll see you again in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.